Hello everybody, welcome to Deluxe Collectibles, and today we're going to be doing my reaction and review for Hilda Season 2, Episode 6, The Old Bells of Trollberg. And if you would like to check out my full uncut reaction to the episode, you can be sure to go down below to the top of the description of this video where you'll find a link leading you over to Google Photos where you'll be able to view that full reaction with all of the footage, all of the audio, all of that good stuff. And then if you want to come back over to this video or just watch this, I will be giving you my full spoiler review and analysis of the episode, so that's what we're going to get straight into here. So I would advise, of course, checking out the episode firsthand, but let's get straight into it. So basically, the episode picks up with Hilda and Frida and David, and they're in the Sparrow Scouts right now, and they're trying to track the migration patterns of the wolves. And I know I most of the time mispronounce their names as wolves, but they are wolves. I've now learned that, now that I've heard them say it quite a few times in the episode, so hopefully I wind up saying it correctly. But you know, when you're in the moment of talking, sometimes you miss things like that. But nonetheless, we begin with that, and they're basically trying to track these patterns because of course it's kind of important to know that when they're doing this. And then the bell goes off randomly, so of course from the title of the episode you kind of know this is going to involve probably the bell keeper in some sort of way in the bells of Trollberg. So we hear the bell go off, and it's basically just randomly going off, and this seems kind of weird because there's no trolls around, there's nothing happening, so why would the reason be for this, or what would the reason be for this? But nonetheless, it winds up throwing the wolves off quite a bit, and they wind up starting to crash on the Sparrow Scout. So everybody's trying to dodge them, and it's basically their teacher or their troop leader winds up saying, "Okay, everybody, stay calm and dodge the wolves." And I'm like, you know what? You should probably put that on a T-shirt. That sounds like a pretty cool saying right there. But basically, they wind up kind of going around and trying to actually help the wolves because of course they have to get them back airborne, and some of them have turned over, they tipped over, and it's kind of difficult for them to get back to being airborne. So Hilda kind of leads everyone and says, okay, come on, we gotta help these wolves get back up in the air. So they wind up doing that, and luckily it seems like the wolves are pretty light, which would make sense considering they are floating in the air and they literally have no wings or anything. So I don't know what's propelling them in the air, so it must just be that they are very light, so when they're turned right side up, they just naturally float up. So that would make sense, and I did like seeing that. So you get to see all the Sparrow Scouts work together to get them back in the air, so that was very nice to see. We get to see that, and then Hilda tries to yell over to the bell keeper to kind of say like, hey, like, what's going on? Why are you ringing the bell right now? There's literally nothing going on. So she receives no response. For one, I mean, it could just be that you are very far away from that tower, and I don't know if yelling is going to reach all the way over there, but nonetheless, it's not able to reach them. And then we cut back to Hilda. Now it's nighttime, and now she's come home, and we see that Joanna, her mother, is working on some sort of like project basically, because of course she's like an artist and a graphic designer, so she's doing some sort of design, and it's kind of preoccupying her. And we kind of get to see a small look at some of her documents where it seems like she's working on something bell related. So at first I thought this could potentially be maybe to do with new bell designs, but it seems like it's more of just advertising for the bells. So basically we get to see that, and they're kind of just picking them up, and then Hilda goes to her bedroom where we get to see Elfer come out of her little clock where I suppose Elfer's living, which is very cute. I do like that quite a bit. And we get to see that Bartel has actually showed up. If you don't remember Bartel, he is the one who was leading that kind of group of like the rogue elves basically, and they captured David and then were hosting him, and I thought that was just really cool that they're bringing him back into it, so I enjoyed seeing that. And basically he kind of explains that the sort of bell ringing every so often, like it's apparently ringing every hour, so it's kind of getting a little bit annoying, and it's causing a lot of issues. It's sending the wolves all out of whack, and it's just kind of ruining everything. So it's becoming a problem that Hilda, of course, is going to eventually have to wind up dealing with. So they kind of discuss that over just eating some cookies, which it honestly makes it hard to take Bartel seriously, as he's just trying to chew his food as he's explaining all of this. But it's creating some pretty disastrous things going on for them. They're not even able to complete a full braid on their hair, so you know, that's definitely an issue here. I mean, look at that head of hair. It is a bit of a mess, I must say. So basically he's just kind of explaining that. Tontu's saying also it's even reaching into the nowhere space, and the nowhere space does not have good acoustics, so it is not going very well for him. So we see him shove some socks in his ears, which I honestly didn't even know where Tontu's ears were, but I guess they're somewhere in that head of hair. But basically, they kind of explain, and Bartel, of course, wants to like go head on. He wants to get into a battle with the Bellkeeper and everyone and to try to fix this. But Hilda's like, no, don't worry, I know the Bellkeeper. I can reason with him and we can find out what's going on here and then hopefully solve this problem. So Bartel's like, all right, well, I suppose I'll give you a chance. And then he flies off on his pigeon named Cedric, who we did see in one of the character reveals. So now we know who Cedric the pigeon is. Not a huge character, but he is basically Bartel's steed. So I do like that. I think that's pretty cool. Then we see that Hilda proceeds to sneak out of the house, so she winds up going out the window, and Elfer, of course, is kind of nervous. He's kind of like, yeah, should you really be sneaking out like this? And Hilda's like, yeah, don't worry about it, we'll only be a minute. Meanwhile, I'm like, it's probably going to take you several minutes to even just get over to the bell tower, but we do get to see something really, really cool, which I know it's a very minor thing, but we see Hilda actually hop on a bicycle and then ride it to the bell tower, so I thought that was really cool. There's some character development right there. Now we can see Hilda can basically perfectly ride a bicycle. Now, of course, in season 1, that was like her biggest fear, was not being able to ride a bicycle, but now she's able to do so pretty perfectly, I would say. So I think that's pretty awesome. So it's cool to see that, just kind of tying it back together. I love that this show ties so many things back together to things where you didn't think it would come back up, but it does, and I love that. Then we get to see Hilda kind of yelling up to kind of get the Bellkeeper's attention, and she winds up going up to the top floor, turning on the light and realizing that it is an automated robot that seems to be ringing this bell, so that's definitely quite interesting. And then the Bellkeeper does show up, and of course he's a little bit grouchy, but like he's a really cool character. Like, he likes Hilda, you can tell, like they have a good friendship and they share similar opinions on what Eric Elberg has been doing and kind of just all of that. But he explains that Eric has kind of put these automated Bellkeepers into effect in all of the bell towers, and this is kind of the one where they're trying it out first to see how it goes, and then they're going to announce it at some sort of ceremony that is going to be held the next day. So it's definitely something that he's trying to make these changes, of course, to get more fame for himself. So this is one of those core ones, and we get to actually see that there is basically a troll on the ground with one of their baby trolls as well, which I gotta say, super cute. I love seeing the little baby trolls with their, of course, parents there, and I think that's really cute. But then we get a little bit of a small twist here where we see basically the Bellkeeper wound up throwing his sandwich down at them to kind of like get them out of here, but basically it's for a good reason. Of course, Hilda kind of snaps at him at first, but then he's like, no, they gotta get out of here because of the bell. And then they put on some headphones here, and then it winds up ringing, and of course it's gonna be super loud because they are right up there with it, but it winds up, of course, annoying the trolls and kind of scaring them off a little bit, or making them want to leave, because it doesn't necessarily scare them, but it just annoys them and hurts their ears, which I would imagine, considering this thing's going to be going off every hour, that it would probably annoy everyone in Trollberg. I mean, like, trolls aren't the only ones that can hear bells. It's going to be annoying everybody. And especially if you're playing that at night, I mean, that's absolutely just ridiculous. I don't know what Eric Elberg is thinking, or if he's even thinking at all. He seems a little bit headstrong, I would say, but we get to see the Bellkeeper kind of just further explains the system and how it's just automated like this, and how it's kind of like there's a hub in the middle of Trollberg, basically, where this ceremony is going to be held, where basically it's controlling all of the bell towers, which there's several of them all around Trollberg, and that's what kind of powers them and activates them. So that's kind of like the objective, sort of, is going to be to shut that down. But we get to see Hilda kind of talk with the Bellkeeper a bit more. They bond a little bit more as well. He kind of explains how he's actually tracking the WOF migration patterns, which I thought was really cool to see, how they just kind of have similar things, or similar interests, I suppose. So I thought that was kind of cool, just a little cool thing to sort of bond over. And he likes the trolls as well. You can see he can tell that they're not really all bad or anything, or a threat even, so he can see that as long as they leave each other alone, then there's going to be no sort of war or battle between them. So I like that. He's a very reasonable person and just a cool character overall, I would say. Then after the Bellkeeper kind of explains everything that's going on with them and how they're controlled, Hilda of course is like, we can stop this, we can like end this and hopefully prevent any more like further repetitive bell ringing. But then the Bellkeeper of course is kind of being a little bit more realistic, and he's like, you just gotta kind of give up, there's really nothing we can do about this. And then he's like, I gotta get back to my shift. And then they wind up leaving in parting ways, and then Alfred's like, well, at least Bartel's gonna be happy that they get to go to war now with these people. And then Hilda's like, I don't know if that's exactly the best way to sort of go about this. Then she returns home and she sees that Joanna's kind of fallen asleep at her table here of designing this bell advertisement, and Hilda winds up seeing one of the papers that has like basically a layout of the bell system, so she winds up taking that. And of course then we get to see the next day she's with Frida, David, and Tontu, Twig as well, and then also Bartel and his pigeon as well, Cedric, and then Alfred, and they're all sort of planning this out. I don't know why I felt the need to list all of the characters. You can see them in the screenshot, but you know what I'm talking about. They're planning this out basically. They have a bit of a diorama set up where they're kind of going over the plan here of how they want to infiltrate this place, and basically they're going to have everybody sort of play a role. David's going to be lookout, Bartel's going to kind of distract the guards as well, and then we're also going to have Alfred helping out with that as well. We'll also have Frida using one of her spells also, which is really cool. They're already letting her use some of this witch magic that she's starting to learn. So it's a spell that can kind of help them find the cord that they need to cut in order to cut off power to this system. So we get to see them all kind of given their roles, kind of like a sort of heist setup that you would get, and I really love that. I like getting to see everybody involved in the episode in a cool way, so I do enjoy that quite a bit. Then after the planning process, we get to see Hilda catch up with her mom Joanna, and they're actually going to this ceremony event, which of course Joanna didn't really expect from Hilda, but of course Hilda has other intentions here of kind of sneaking off and going to try to prevent this ceremony from commencing. So we get to see Eric and Gerda come out, and they're kind of doing the announcement, of course, and of course being as full of himself as he is and narcissistic, Eric just starts blabbering on and on. So Hilda has a good opportunity to kind of leave here, and she starts sneaking out of the back of the bleachers that they're sitting on, and then Joanna goes to hand her a cucumber sandwich, and she's like, Hilda, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? And then Hilda's just like, oh yeah, I gotta go use the washroom, you know, it was all of that peppermint tea. But then Joanna's, after Hilda's left, Joanna's like, you didn't even touch your tea. So you can tell just her kind of growing more and more suspicious, and I'm sure that's going to come to a head in one of the future episodes. But I really love this kind of just small moment where Hilda runs into like this alleyway, comes through this fence, and then Frida's just waiting there for her looking all cool, and I'm like, this is like a really cool like heist that they're trying to pull off here. So I really like seeing that. And then we get to see basically David watching Bartel and everyone kind of saying how Alfred does not look ready for this, which of course Alfred, a little bit of a similar personality type to David, kind of nervous about something like this, I'm sure. And then we get to see Tontu come out as well, and he wants to change his code name as well, which is kind of a little gag in the episode. He wants to be called Nightwolf, but of course David's like, nah, that'll totally mess up the plan, we can't change your name or your code name. So I thought that was kind of funny as well. But it's really smart how they utilized all of their specific abilities. So they have Bartel and his troops and Alfred kind of attack the guards at the front, kind of distract them by throwing some rocks from their pigeons that they're riding. And then we get to see Hilda and Frida and Twig go through the nowhere space with Tontu, so really cool use of that as well, a great way to sort of sneak in here. And Tontu is able to get them onto kind of the main level here, and then the other guards are kind of distracted and taken away because they're being attacked out the front. So their plan seems to be going pretty perfectly, I would say, and they wind up being able to break in. And then Frida's a little bit intimidated because there are a ton of wires. I mean, come on guys, let's get your wire management game on here. But there are a ton, so Frida is kind of nervous here, but then Hilda kind of fulfilling her familiar role to Frida, kind of being her apprentice as on Frida's journey to being a witch. She, I'm sorry, my voice had a total crack there, but basically Hilda kind of is just telling her, come on, Frida, with vigor, say it with vigor, and then Frida kind of puts all of her energy into saying this spell and casting it, and she's able to find the wire. They're able to cut off the system and get it offline, which is very very, very good. And then we cut back to Eric on the stage, which we get to see all of the people. One of the previous character reveals when they were doing all of those on Twitter, they actually showed the character, or the people in the costumes. So now we know the context to that, why people were dressed up in troll and like bird costumes. It's because of that reason. So I thought that was kind of cool. They're just on stage kind of just to make it more exciting. But then we get to see Gerda has the controller and it says system offline. But of course, there is a backup system that she activates, and now Hilda and Frida are like, okay, we did not plan for this, what are we going to do? And then Frida's like, okay, I would guess that we would have to get to the top of the tower, and that there's got to be some sort of main power control that can even turn off the backup and do something like that. So Hilda's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it, you just keep an eye out and try to distract anyone who tries to come up here. And then we get to see that Hilda basically is trying to get into this locked room, and then a mystery figure appears in silhouette, and it winds up being the Bellkeeper, which super exciting that he shows up at first. It's kind of like, oh no, is he coming here to stop me? But it's actually, he comes to help Hilda, of course. So that was really cool to see. I love seeing him get more involved as well, which was really cool. So he's like, come on, we got to shut down this system and find some sort of way to put a stop to it. So they can kind of see that there's really no possible way to shut this thing down. They don't really have an off button for the backup power. So they wind up kind of Hilda coming up with the solution to just turn up the volume all the way, because then hopefully it'll overload the system when the bells do go off. Then hopefully they'll just wind up making too loud of a noise and then just overloading, and also it'll probably piss everybody off, so then they won't be all for this bell ringing idea for every hour of the day. I mean, I cannot stress that enough. That is just way too much in my opinion. But they wind up doing that, and then they wind up activating the bells, and it just goes, you see it go all around Trollberg. Kind of affecting everyone, and it's very loud. Of course, Eric's like, oh yeah, I hear that sweet smell of the bells. I do not even know what I'm saying. The sweet sound of the bells. So he winds up saying that, and he's like, I don't think this is very loud. And Gerda's even like, nah, this is pretty loud. And then Eric's like, okay, calm down everyone, I'm sure it's just an issue. It's the first time we're sort of trying this with all of them. But it does wind up luckily overloading the system and actually propelling the bell out of the building at the ceremony, and it winds up crashing on Eric. And I was like, okay, like, if obviously none of this is taking place in real life, but if this was realistic, then he would like probably be dead, honestly. Like, the bell falls on him, and even though he lands on the inside of it, it would still have some sort of effect on him. But we kind of see that, and then the Bellkeeper and Hilda are like, all right, good job. They shake hands, and they're like, we pulled off this heist, luckily, even though I know the Bellkeeper wasn't like in on the plan, but he still wind up helping in the end with achieving their goal. And then Hilda meets up once again with Joanna, her mother, and she's got to make up some sort of excuse, and she's like, oh, sorry, Mom, I just wound up catching up with some friends. And then we see the Bellkeeper in the crowd, and he kind of walks away with a nice smile. So I really hope to get to see his character return, because I really enjoyed his presence in this episode. I thought he was just really great and a really fun character for Hilda to sort of team up with. So I'd like to see him integrated at least into another episode, maybe in season 2 or season 3 at some point at least. And then we get to see Gerda trying to lift off the bell off of Eric, who sounds like Eric's alright, which I guess, luckily, I mean, I don't want him to like die. I think he's just kind of a misunderstood person who has some good intentions, but just the way he's going about it, and also just why he wants to do it for the fame, aren't exactly the right reasons. But he just wants to keep Trollberg safe, you can see. And then we kind of just see everything's all good, everybody's just doing good. The Bellkeeper's just enjoying himself. He sees once again the baby troll and their troll parent as well, just kind of enjoying it. So it's very good. Everything seems to be at peace, which is really nice to see. But then we see something that kind of teases the next episode. So it's going to probably take place in the ocean, kind of near the docks once again, because we get to see that basically Safety Patrol is now having to go out and test all of the bells, because of course, Eric's going to try this again, but he wants to make sure all the bells are functioning properly, so he even wants to check the old ones that aren't even in use anymore. So they have someone dive down, and they wind up hitting the bell with a hammer, and then it sends out a shockwave, basically, going through the water, and we end the episode by seeing this sort of, like, creature with, like, multiple eyes, and I mean, like, multiple eyes. And so it seems like they've, like, caused some sort of issue with this, like, multi-eyed sea creature, so I'll be interested to see what happens in the next episode and how they kind of wind up having to solve this problem, who they're going to have to team up with, or what's going to happen within the episode. I know I've seen in one of the trailers, I saw like Frida and Hilda in like some sort of bubble underwater, so I'm going to assume that's going to have to do with this and what'll be in the next episode. So yeah, just overall a fantastic episode. I really love the Bellkeeper. He's got to be one of my favorite new characters for season 2. He's just absolutely fantastic, really cool getting to see him sort of team up with Hilda and them sort of bond over their similar interests and similar opinions as well, which is really cool. He's kind of like what Hilda tried to do with Eric Allberg, but then of course a conflict came up between them of their difference of opinions on how to deal with trolls, but then of course Bellkeeper kind of fills that role of being someone with similar opinions as well. So I thought that was really cool to get to see. Just overall a great episode, a good amount of action, a really cool heist sort of plot going on. I like getting to see all the characters have certain roles in it that kind of were able to fulfill and help accomplish the plan. So yeah, just overall really great. Now I want to hear all of your thoughts on the episode down below in the comment section of this video, and if you did enjoy my reaction and review, be sure to leave a like on the video as well. It is highly appreciated, and also subscribe if you want to see any of my future Hilda reactions and reviews. I'll be doing them for every episode of season 2, so if you want to stay tuned for that, that's the best way to do so. But thank you so much. I will see you all next time, and always remember, keep on collecting.